DJGamers.com.
Welcome everybody to Console Wars of the Past. Here we are taking a look at the Sega Genesis. Here's the 16-bit Sega Genesis. As you can see, it says 16-bit right on it. They wanted to make that clear. And it has high definition graphics. That's right, your Genesis plays in HD.
Sega was really big on using words that didn't actually mean anything in their marketing for their systems. So high definition graphics really means nothing, but it looks good on the system.
Hey, yeah, nowadays high definition graphics actually means something.
Yeah.
Here we have a volume switch, which is strange for a console.
For your headphone jacks, which you could plug directly into the system.
For the high definition sound. Here's your switch, your power switch. And that gray is your reset button. Now, flip it up here. You see the headphone jacks. And then we have our two controller ports. Yes, standard Genesis controller ports. Alright. Now on the back here, we've got an extension port, which we'll get to later. A channel selector, your RF, and your AV adapter out. So you have your adapter and then your AV on the left there. Now,
AC power cord. This is
yeah,
where the power cord goes in.
Now that one was also compatible with the Master System, the big one right there. Now this is a strange little port that has some kind of chip sticking out of it. Wonder where that goes to. Maybe we'll get to that later too. Yeah, you hook up various peripherals to that. Sega used every piece and every little chunk of their consoles, so...
We'll put that back on later.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Alright. Well, after they got done with this model, they decided to downgrade it a little bit. Think it needed a little bit of slimming down for the home, so here is your Genesis 2 model. This was the one that started to become mainstream because this was when the Genesis really started taking off. This was the one they bundled with Sonic the Hedgehog and all further bundles from that point.
This is the one most popularly known in the United States. And of course the Sega Genesis was called the Mega Drive everywhere else in the world.
Yeah. So Genesis just looked cool over here.
And it is a top-loading system.
Yeah, we do have the top-loading cartridge port. You know, standard for most video game systems at the time. Flip it up, we'll have the, take a look. Now you have a lot simpler interface here. Just the power and the TV. Pretty simple.
That's it.
Yeah, there's no headphone jacks or anything on this.
Now you still have your side port for your mystery peripheral.
Yes.
Which we will look at late in a future version
of our Console Wars. There were many other pieces to go onto this Genesis. Now, let's look at its baby brother. This is the Genesis 3. A tiny little Genesis that was released late in the system's lifespan. They really slimmed down the hardware, and basically it was the same size as the Game Gear when square footage wise.
Nothing on the back.
Yeah. How do you hook the TV?
It's all on the side for some reason.
Oh wow, that's a tiny little bugger.
Compared to the previous models, definitely smaller.
Yeah.
But otherwise, same hardware, same system. All three play the exact same games and are essentially the same machine.
Yeah, just different sizes. Basically what Sony did with their PS1.
Just different carriages.
Yeah. So they had different models of the Genesis. Now here we'll take a look at some controllers. Here's your standard Sega Genesis pad. This came with all Sega Genesis consoles, which had the infamous 3 buttons and the start, and your directional pad.
Now, an improvement from the Sega Master System controller, we got an extra button over here and a start button, but still...
no select.
not the most comfortable design. It worked. Not a bad pad.
Slightly ergonomic. I mean, it does fit into your hand pretty well.
The buttons were nice to hit, nice and big.
Yeah, they had some pretty large buttons, so you could always tell which one you were hitting. And the directional pad felt kind of comfortable.
Nice control of the directional pad. You could hit angles pretty easily.
Which was perfect for fighting games, which were popular in those days.
Yes, we'll get into that.
Speaking of which, we have a fighter's arcade stick.
Considering SEGA was a king of the arcade scene, they brought an arcade pad home with all the bells and whistles. You've got your multi-selects here, on and off powers, mega fire speed with an adjustable notch. You've got your mode, which was kind of the equivalent of the select button on the Nintendo consoles, and if you wanted 3 or 6 button support.
Yes, a very, very good arcade stick.
Yeah, nice solid base to it.
Because you always want your arcade sticks to be sturdy.
And you want a metal base. That shows you that it's definitely got some weight and beef to it.
A plastic base on an arcade stick just doesn't work because it ends up getting broken.
You want to be able to hit your friend with this after he's pissed you off using the same move on you 26 times.
Which most people did, and hence how some arcade pads got broken.
Because you've spent $50 buying this arcade stick and that asshole just beat you with that same goddamn punch.
With the 3-button controller.
That's what the metal base was for. So
you could pummel your friends. Now here's a 6-button pad, which came later in the model. Now this is actually the third-party pad, but they're all essentially the same.
From Performance. Yeah, so you see here you get the extra mode button, X, Y, and Z buttons, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it was basically to compete with the Super Nintendo's extra buttons and allow some games to support up to 6 buttons.
And considering a lot of fighting games were moving to that 4-button set at that time. Now, speaking of the games, let's take a look at some of our library here. Here we've got Tasmania, Ronald McDonald. Now, we aren't playing a lot of these games. These are just kind of our joke.
These are random games that we're laying around, so this isn't exactly what we'll be playing today, but this gives you an idea of the cartridge sizes. Now EA were rebels and released these larger cartridges, and they also had battery backups, which may have been part of the reason for the extra size.
Well, that's a plus, because a lot of these, could use the battery backup, like the John Madden football there, could use the extra time so you could save your season.
Now,
speaking of John Madden football, here's Madden 97. Now this is what the Genesis cases look like. Here you have all your books and everything.
It all comes in the front flap here.
Nice little schedule there for you Madden fans. Here's the game itself. You see it has a nice little protective sleeve there, or a nice little place to hold the cartridge in.
Won't fall out.
Doesn't fall out. These plastic cartridges, or plastic cases, held up really well. That's why you'll see a lot of Sega Genesis cases out there today, whereas you wouldn't see the cardboard boxes for the Nintendo stuff.
Now, for a while, Electronic Arts sports games were released in limited editions, which they released all of them like that, so they really weren't that limited, but it was a good selling point.
Yeah, it was a good little ploy. Now, here's another one to look at, is an Accolade cartridge, which just had a strange shape and design to it. I don't know if that was actually an official release, or...
They had to be rebels, too. It says, it has Sega's name on it, so
it's officially licensed.
It's officially licensed. They just wanted to have cool cartridges, I guess.
Now, another strange cart here, Sonic & Knuckles. This was the lock-on cartridge technology, which would allow you to play the Knuckles character in Sonic 2 and 3, and then see how it pops into your console just like so.
So you've got this now tower sticking out of the Sega, and Sega really liked the idea that they started with this, and we'll see where that goes.
So, you never know. Sega loves to do towers. So, I'd say let's go and play some of these. What do you think?
Let's try it out and see what we find.
Alright, everybody. Now we're going to play some of these games. We're going to start off here with the Sega 6-pack, which is basically a compilation of all of the good early games for the Sega Genesis. And we'll start off with Sonic the Hedgehog here, since this is the most well-known one. Sega!
From Sonic a Team.
Dun, 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 dun. Alright.
So this game was released in 1991 as a Super Mario killer.
Which, it actually ended up being for a while there, because Sonic had that edgy image over here in America.
Well, it had blast processing.
Oh, they didn't start promoting that until Sonic 2.
That's true, and that's what kept you with the series. Now, we start with this game because this is when the Sega Genesis really caught everyone's eye, I think, at least significantly here in America. So, if you want to tell us about Ray Kalinsky. Ray Tennant.
Tom Kalinske?
My bad.
That's okay. And, you know, old CEOs, sometimes you forget their names. You were thinking Ray Kassar.
No, I really wasn't.
Okay. But, Ray Kalinsky, or, see, now you got me saying it.
I think his name should have been Ray. But
I have a cold, if you can't tell. Okay, Tom Kalinske was basically the brainchild behind the Sega's marketing in the US. He was the one that took basically a company that had failed with the Master System and turned them into the pretty much competing head-to-head with Nintendo on the console market.
yeah, he became CEO of Sega of America in 1990. So shortly after the Sega Genesis / Sega Mega Drive's release.
So once Kalinske started working for Sega, they really took off. It was his idea to package Sonic with the console and to push it as its premier game, as its mascot, you know, per to say. And it worked out really well for him because Sonic was good to put up against Mario. They really pushed the speed of him, and
The whole game design was literally to make a better game than Super Mario World.
it was built on speed. And unfortunately, there was a little bit of lag there. So, and yes, we are playing this on the original Genesis console, so the lag was just due to the Genesis.
The Genesis is
The blast processing couldn't handle that run.
The blast processing really failed there. And it was things like that. Kalinske came along and tried to create this new image for Sega of being tough and bad and the best thing on the market, which is really what Sega had tried to do previously, but he succeeded in it. And it really did well in their advertising campaigns, and their whole marketing focus was very well structured and very head-to-head. They would call Nintendo out literally with their advertising campaigns.
Oh, it all started with Genesis does what Nintendo don't, and that was like basically what a head-on like you suck, Nintendo.
Yeah, and this guy also helped bring the Welcome to the Next Level campaign, the Sega Scream, which was like, I'm not going to do it. Ray will have it in one of the commercials that you'll see in one of these videos.
Pretty much the most infamous line you'll hear is, you know, the SEGA!
Yeah, Sega became synonymous with these sounds in these commercials, and most of that was brought to the table by Kalinske. So he was crucial in the Sega Genesis's success in America. And what do you say there? What is the plural of Genesises? We were discussing this beforehand, and I don't think there is one because Genesis...
You can't call it genocide.
Well,
that just sounds bad.
With a Genesis, there is to be only one. So there technically shouldn't be multiple Genesis. Genocide.
Genesis is
so
genocide.
We're not sure how to pronounce that. So we're going to just say whatever we want with that. And if anyone knows, please tell us. But we really don't care. But I would be interested to know, though. So here's the boss battle with Dr. Robotnik.
And it's not Eggman, it's Robotnik. Anyone that calls it Eggman's stupid.
Isn't he technically Eggman, though, worldwide?
They call him Eggman, but seriously, it's Robotnik. That's what we've known him as, and just calling him Eggman's just kind of dumb. It kind of took off his edge. You know, Robotnik sounds like an evil robot. You know, Eggman just sounds like,
he's laying eggs.
Yeah, it looks like he's gonna, pop out chickens or something, So, that was a look at the first level of Sonic the Hedgehog.
The Sega 6-pack.
Alright, we're going to move on to another game in this Sega 6-pack. We're going to try Columns now. This was a unique puzzle game for the Sega Genesis, whereas it wasn't like your standard Tetris that had come out at the time. It was more like Match the Colors.
So we'll go ahead and try a two-player battle here.
You can play two-player. You can just hop in at any time.
So this was to compete with Tetris. As you see, it came out in 1990. So it was a cool variation of that, of the block games, and this set the standard for a lot that would come after this game. A lot would be modeled after this, and the two-player aspect definitely was cool, because the original Tetris did not have a multiplayer. And again, we'll talk about the Genesis multiplayer aspects again and again throughout this, because there are so many multiplayer games for this, and it was something they really pushed for.
Oh, it was really great for a multiplayer console. I mean, it had tons of sports games, which we're going to take a look at, that really pushed the multiplayer. There were games like this that did the multiplayer. There were your arcade, like, basically ports, like Streets of Rage, and we've got a Turtles game that's kind of like that. So, you're going to see a lot of multiplayer with this console.
Yeah, comparatively with the Super Nintendo, a lot of the Super Nintendo games were your epic one-player games, where the great games for the Genesis were the multiplayer games.
It's kind of weird how, looking through the ages, you see, like, each company changed their focus on what types of games they put out. Like, immediately after this, Nintendo went away from the epic one-player games and went to the multi-thing of Sega. Like, with the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
They went completely multiplayer.
They put a lot of focus on that and made it a integral part of the system.
So it's just interesting to see how that, every generation you can pretty much expect anything from these companies.
Yeah, it's, you have to do whatever it's going to take to sell the system. Obviously, I'm sure Nintendo saw the success that, Sega had with that and said, okay, well, we'll put 4 controller ports right in our system, and that worked out great for them. Unfortunately, it didn't, win them the console war, which, we'll talk about winning and losing in this console war, and there are a lot of different levels of that, because,
This was the most interesting one, because really the only winners and losers here were the gamers. The gamers were the winners, because it brought out the ultimate in competition from both companies.
Yeah, we saw a lot of great stuff, and we saw a highly competitive marketplace, which we did not see during the basically mid to late 80s. Nintendo dominated, and so this was the first real competition for them.
And Genesis really brought it to the table and like put it in Nintendo's face and said, you know what, we're gonna try and compete with you head on. We're not messing around anymore with this Master System stuff.
And they did it successfully.
Yeah, I have to admit that the Genesis was actually one of my most favorite consoles of all time. I mean, there was just so many good games on it.
So
this is columns. I mean, there's not really too much to show here, but you know, it's a fun game.
Yeah, it's still a well-played puzzle game. It still holds up, and you can still get it in various forms, can't you?
Yeah, you can actually download it on the Virtual Console.
There you go. So
we're gonna move on here to another classic on the six-pack here. Alright, we're going to try another one here. We're going to move on to Streets of Rage here. See how we like some brawling action, Final Fight style.
Streets of Rage style.
Streets of Rage style. Alright.
Never mind.
It just took a second to load. This city was once a happy, peaceful place until one day.
Until one day.
2 players.
Now, as you can see, we get some badass dudes here. Axel, Adam, and the chick Blaze. I'm going to take the chick, because I'm strong enough with my masculinity that I can emulate a female and not...
You didn't take the chick.
Crap. Well, then...
Oh, well.
I'll pretend I'm a black dude. I'm strong enough in my masculinity to pretend I'm a black guy.
Okay.
Alright, so we're getting shot at by the police here.
I think they just firebombed the whole area.
Which is typical.
Oh, wait. No, that's your special. Stop that.
Oh. So I'm dive bombing us.
Yeah, you're killing us all. Well,
Alright.
actually, it doesn't affect us. It just kills the enemies, but you're wasting them.
So we're with the police on this.
Yeah, the police are on our side.
And there's nothing like a good beat 'em up. You know, there were so many of these back then, and this is Sega's take on the genre.
Oh, the reason for that was these games were just so fun. You could just hop in with a friend and work your way through it. There really wasn't any, like, anything holding you back, really. It was just go and beat up your friends. And apparently you can literally beat up your friends, as you'll see here.
I'm gonna run. So, this was obviously an arcade hit. I mean,
oh
these
yeah,
games were huge in the arcade, and you know, a lot of them just made it to the home consoles then. And of course, Sega wanted to bring this to their Genesis, and again, a great multiplayer experience.
yeah. This actually spawned a
Did a little
couple
bit
of
of-
sequels. Streets of Rage 2 and 3. There wasn't really any variation on that. Now you can break the stuff open, grab weapons, grab power-ups, like that
There's
apple
some
will
food
heal
there.
you.
Go grab that.
Oh, do I need it, huh?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I'm getting hurt. I'll grab this glass bottle, because I'm going to fight bar style here. That's right. You take that glass in the gut. Oh, I always hated those ones. They're the annoying
What are they,
ones.
prostitutes or what?
Oh, those guys? They're just dressed up in really bad outfits.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
you.
kind of look like they're wearing like fishnet stockings or something.
No, the actual prostitutes are up here later.
Okay. I've never actually played the Streets of Rage series. I've played lots of these types of games. Final Fight, River City Ransom I love. But I'm not real familiar with Streets of Rage, so...
You have
I'm
your.
cutting my teeth here, but they're all pretty much the same, so it...
You have your
know,
street walking.
punch. Punch, jump, pick things up, and that's it. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, so far I've used one button. Okay, now
That's
2.
all you need, but it's a great time, you know, it's a great formula. Just endless bad guys, for whatever reason. This is the biggest street gang that I think exists, but...
This is like Die Hard 3, or not Die Hard 3, Death Wish 3 like style street gang. You know, there's thousands of them. And you have your kung fu guy who is completely out of place in this. Because, you know, who in a street gang knows kung fu? And I can grab him by his hair and knee him in the face and grab my lead pipe again and just walk around and bash people on the head. See, there's the actual prostitute.
Oh, snap.
She's a
got whip.
dominatrix.
Yeah, I'm taking her down.
Yeah, all the prostitutes in this game aren't normal prostitutes. They're all dominatrixes. So, keep in mind that if you run into a dominatrix on the street, just beat her up.
I like how you differentiate normal prostitutes from not normal prostitutes.
There is a difference. There's the ones that you pay thousands of dollars for.
There certainly is. These aren't your crack whore prostitutes.
Right. These are your top dollar prostitutes with whips.
Man. All right.
Okay. We're waiting for our
the music
first boss
changes.
here.
Oh, look at this.
And they have giant... What the hell are those? Are those boomerangs?
Some sort of blades or boomerangs. I'm not sure. Oh, they are boomerangs. So we're apparently fighting Australians. What is it with Australians and SEGA games? We were playing that rescue mission, and we were fighting the Australian army.
I don't know.
Apparently SEGA had some sort of grudge with those that come from Australia, New Zealand.
Maybe it was all those bad 80s Australian movies.
I'm not sure. But
like Crocodile Dundee.
it seems to be a recurring theme in SEGA games.
Oh, them and their issues with Australians.
So, I think that's about all there is to
Yeah, it's all
say
pretty
or
much.
see
You're
with
gonna
this
firebomb us again.
Oh, snap.
Oh well. Well, we're gonna move on to another game on this six-pack here and show you more of the early Sega hits.
Hiya!
Alright, next up here, we're gonna take a look at Super Hang-On, which is basically a sequel to the original Hang-On for the Master System and arcade. Let's see.
And this is a Yu Suzuki design, who was, and still is, pretty much the most prolific designer at SEGA, and did a lot of their early great arcade video game hits once they got into the actual video game industry, rather than just the regular, I don't know what you'd call them, parlor games and arcade machines of the day.
Yeah.
When they first went to video games, Yu Suzuki was prolific for them, and so this was the follow-up to Hang On, and bringing this home, it looked great. And here's another genre that SEGA, I think, dominated Nintendo in, which is racing. Even though Nintendo had the Mode 7 graphics and a little better processing power, SEGA consistently had better racing games on their systems.
Sega's always been really good at racing games. So, you know, you can see how they put a lot of extra effort into their racing games. Even the ones that you see today, like Sega Rally. I mean, they look fantastic.
Yeah, Sega's always had top-class racing games, and it goes back to Yu Suzuki. He set the mold for a lot of their racing games, and he did the Daytona series, so just on and on. He set the mold for these games for them, and so it really goes back to him.
And they were all really fun. You know, you just hop in and you race at super fast speeds, which, you know, here's another example of that blast processing.
Yes, and again, blast processing meant nothing.
No, blast processing meant absolutely nothing. It was just an ad term.
It was literally an ad term. It didn't have anything to do with any actual hardware capability. But it was a marketing term that Sega used to promote the Sega Genesis as opposed to the Super Nintendo, you know, saying that it had a lot more power. You want to move on? You know, I think that's
pretty much it for Hang On, or Super Hang On.
Yeah, lots of racing. So we're continuing on with the Sega 6-pack here, and tearing our way through it, and this is really showing off some of Sega's best stuff for the Genesis from early on that they later packaged all onto one cartridge.
Which was a really good, collection of hits. Which I want to know about that Spider-Man thing. I want to know where they threw in Spider-Man. I never did find it. But this is Revenge of Shinobi, so I think it's Shinobi 2. I believe Shinobi 3 was actually called Shinobi 3. Because the original Shinobi was on the Master System.
Yes, and also the arcade.
Which we took a look at our Console Wars of the Past Part 2. So we'll show you how much the Shinobi series has improved. As now you can see when he shoots, everyone explodes, even ninjas and samurais.
And you can see they're anticipating his moves there.
But now I'm going to turn into lightning, and nothing can hurt me. To power up. Use my sword.
So this is
So I'm like a super powered ninja now.
So this is another one of Sega's great arcade and home hits, and that really made the Genesis stand out. It has great graphics. You can see the background scrolls differently than the foreground. There's actually 3 layers of scrolling going on there.
Looks really good compared to the original.
Yeah, the animation's really fluid. The explosions look nice. Really great graphics.
I still wonder why every ninja explodes, though. That's kind of lost.
Because you're
on me
Shinobi. Come on, you're just.
And it's a little bit tougher than the original, as you can see here. This is when they turned the series basically. There's no holds barred now. They're not going to take any mercy on you.
As there shouldn't be on a ninja. A ninja's life is always struggle and I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, a ninja just doesn't stroll down the street with not something bad happening to him.
Yeah, you really have to. A ninja's a tough life. And, he's not saving children in this one either, I've noticed.
No.
He's just kind of off on his own, doing his own thing. And I'm thinking those are hurting me. Man.
But we will be saving children shortly.
Yes, we will be.
So would you like to move on from this one?
Yeah, I think we should move on to one more game on this one.
Finish off the 6-pack.
Okay, rounding out the 6-pack here, we're going to play one of the original arcade hits, Golden Axe. Not to be confused with Golden Axe Warrior.
No, definitely not.
Okay, exit. I think you can just hop in there.
Maybe not.
No? I thought you could play 2-player on this. See if it gives you the press start option. Death Adder invaded. Hold on a second. Let me try and see if we can get 2-player on this. There we go.
Oh, I have to hit start.
You have to hit start. Okay.
Okay, so here's some 2-player Golden Axe.
I want to be the warrior.
I'm gonna take the dwarven axe-wielding maniac.
Death Adder invaded the castle and has taken the king. Yep. Okay. Death Adder killed everyone.
Let's get Death Adder. Oh, what a...
You just used your magic.
Alright. So A button apparently for all Sega beat-em-ups equals...
Equals use your superpower.
Equals superpower.
And this B button is giving me issues.
Now, we talk about the fanboyism in the console wars, of course. During this period, I was an adamant Nintendo fanboy and knew very little of this Genesis and Didn't really want to hear much of it.
I'm getting clustered over
I
here.
got your back. Here we go. Yeah. I'll blunt. Can we hurt each other? Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, get that
Hit
gnome!
the troll!
Get that little son of a bitch. He's got a bag of stuff.
That's all magic.
So, this was another arcade classic that Sega brought home. Now,
You can hop on that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. If you can keep her off of it.
I'll hop on her. Not really, but
Haha!
if I was that dwarf, I certainly would. Man, I need to get away from her.
Wow, she is.
She
whipping-
has got me stuck.
She is like a super.
I'm stuck. I can't get off of her.
Super wench.
Superpower. Come on, anything. Nothing. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Phew, I think I might be dead, though. Oh, okay. You got the
You
right.
bitch!
Man, take some of that, woman. Yeah.
About time. God.
Alright, so, we didn't fare so well there. I'm riding some sort of... I don't know what I'm riding.
It's,
Get that thing.
I have no idea what that thing's called.
Some sort of golden axe creature. Now, this is just an odd, beat 'em up that's set in a medieval theme.
It's very fantasy-esque, you know.
We've got things that we can't readily identify, creatures that we don't know what the hell they are. And giants. You've got to have giants if it's a fantastical tale.
Yeah, this is our first actual boss fight here.
We've both got sweet rides here. Dude,
That
doesn't
really
do much.
helps.
Oh.
Especially against these guys, who look like the Iron Sheik of WWF fame.
And I like the nice man tights they have on there.
Whoa, I tried to body slam him and it just didn't work.
Yeah, take some of that. So, these games, this was pretty much it. You just sat down with a buddy or by yourself in the arcade or at home and... Oh, you
hit him!
Fiend! Get back with our things. So, you know, these games are just fun to sit down and play, just like Streets of Rage was. I mean, it's essentially the same type of design, and there were dozens of these during this era. And we still see them now and again today, but...
They're not as common nowadays, unfortunately. Most of them end up being kids' games nowadays.
Yeah, it was an arcade thing, really. It went with the arcade culture and kind of died out with that.
That map that showed up shows our path to Death Adder. And yes, Death Adder, you can defeat him, it just takes a little bit. And with these arcade games, the story wasn't very deep, but, you know, it was enough to keep you interested.
Enough to give you some sort of reason why you're killing dozens of things.
Some of these guys are a little overly tough.
I think you were hitting me was the problem there.
Oh. That could be a problem.
So,
Okay, well, I'm just gonna wipe everyone off the map here.
yeah. So there's Golden Axe.
Yeah, it's a fun title. We'll give it more time at another time here, but right now we're gonna move on to a not quite so you know, gentle title.
And there were sequels to this title as well.
Yeah, I
I
believe
Can't
there
Kill
are
the
3 of them.
Children. Okay.
SEGA メガドライブの16ビットソフトシリーズが面白さぶっちぎりでドッカンとデビュー。まずは10号機、そしてスペースハリアー2。やっぱゲームは16ビット。両本ボール。
Danita Stokes, president of HAG.
It's bad enough that Sega Genesis has the most 16-bit games, but this new Sonic the Hedgehog, oh, he really does my doilies. They say he's incredibly fast. Well, what's the hurry, mister? And about his attitude. Smarty pants! Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
Sonic the Hedgehog, now included when you buy a Genesis system.
SEGA introduces Spider-Man with real web-slinging action. Genesis. New Streets of Rage. You control 40 incredible moves. Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Sega Genesis gives you more real villains, hot graphics, and killer two-player action. Genesis. It's a whole lot more. Genesis. Gotta get
Genesis brings you the dazzling powers of the Mystic Warriors, the Ninja, in Revenge of Shinobi. And 16-bit arcade racing action with Super Monaco Grand Prix. 16-bit arcade combat, skills, strategy, reflex, and rivalry. Experience the ninja magic of Revenge of Shinobi and the exhilarating rush of Super Monaco Grand Prix for the Genesis system. Sega Genesis brings the arcade experience home. Genesis system and game sold.
Speaking of the children, we're going to move on here to one of the more kind of disturbing games for the Sega Genesis. I guess in hindsight, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. They actually promoted this as you can actually play two-player.
I don't think at once. We'd have to take turns. Just.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and play, Ray. So, you're Michael Jackson who transforms from a car into a man.
Okay. And from a man to a child molester.
That hasn't been proven.
Uh-huh.
In a court of law.
We are playing Smooth Criminal here. Apparently you can throw your hat.
Now the goal here is to rescue...
What the hell?
You must rescue children.
Okay, that's
as Michael
shocker.
Jackson feels that he must do. This was developed by Sega and was released to go along with Michael Jackson's film Moonwalker.
What is she doing?
Trying to stop him from... I don't know what. I've never seen the movie, so I don't actually know...
Apparently I have, like, magic dust.
As Michael does. I don't know. It's so weird. And Michael Jackson, whatever, he was involved with the development in the game and helped them decide what the design aspects were going to be.
So he decided he had to save children.
And
well, I guess it was like the movie, because I think I remember the movie from back in the day. I caught it on HBO or something.
And he's an accused child molester in real life. And you see that he grabs his crotch a lot. Show him the crotch grab, Ray. This is...
How you do the crotch grab, by
I'm
the
not
way?
sure. Do that, what you just did there.
What?
That thing you just...
He has a little dance. Wow.
That was it when he did that scream. Oh, no, I guess not. Either way, it's very odd, and so your goal here is just to find all the children in the level. There's 2 left in the level somewhere. As you can see in the bottom right, the children icon. There's one of them.
I'm assuming it's behind doors or something?
Apparently this was a way for Michael Jackson to make a massive amount of children believe that he was their friend and there to help them so that he could go to molest other children.
What the hell? Is that a monkey?
That is Bubbles the monkey. Go to the left. He's telling you where to go.
Okay.
Now, Michael Jackson in real life had a monkey.
Haha, you'll never catch me.
So he worked that into the game. Yeah, just keep doing that. What is going on?
What the hell? Right.
Good job, Michael. No bonus.
My brain hurts.
that was like a screamer.
Oh my god.
Yeah, keep doing that.
Was he just grabbing his...
And if you spin around, you have a magic attack, and you can shoot your dust.
Like that?
Like that. Yes. when he gets low on magic, he just grabs his crotch. Apparently he's out of magic vehicle dust. He's trying... Okay, now that's... At what point did he have to tell the developers that that needs to be in the game? I mean, that's what's really frightening about this guy and the design of this game. Is... He's grabbing his crotch there and writhing. There's no not... That's what he's doing. That's so...
Wrong!
Wrong, Michael. Just wrong. And as we've said before, the guy is talented and all that, but he's just wrong.
Yeah, there's something wrong here.
So you have to beat these guys up and save the children and grab at your crotch and shoot magic Michael powder and have a monkey ride on you.
That's right.
Now,
you try and walk up the ladder.
Now, this was the first example of teabagging, perhaps, in a video game. We would later see a lot of this in Halo and other online games, but this is a whole different kind of teabagging, I think.
Okay, I'm stuck.
So apparently... Okay. Now get these women out of the way. You don't have time for them.
Yeah, I don't have time for women. I need to save the children.
So it's really not that great of a game. It's just kind of a beat-em-up.
Yeah, it's a beat-em-up with some interesting overtones.
Where you have to rescue the children. For the good of the children.
Which in most cases would be a good thing, but in Michael Jackson's case, it might not be such a good thing. And... I'd say that's pretty much all we want to see of this.
That's all I want to see
slightly
of this.
disturbing game.
Yeah.
Wonder if I can make him dance again.
This is more of a just kind of a novelty. It's really not that good of a game, and the guy really shouldn't have done it. Shut it off.
Yeah, after that, we kind of needed to cleanse ourselves a little bit, so we're going to move on to something a little bit more, video game-ish?
Yeah, we wanted to look at some of the early SEGA stuff here to start off with, and unfortunately, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was one of SEGA's early games for the Genesis, but here's one of their good ones.
And heavily promoted, by the way.
Of course, because Michael Jackson wanted people to know that he was there to save the children, so the children would feel safe so that he could molest them. What a weirdo. Anyway, this is Phantasy Star 2. This was designed by Yuji Naka, also one of Sega's most prolific designers, behind Yu Suzuki, and they actually referred to him as U2 in some of the credits for some of the games. So, you know, the two of them are regarded very highly in SEGA and really helped get them to where they were. So, this is definitely a lot more graphically impressive than Phantasy Star 1 was. A lot more animation. Your user interface is cleaned up a little bit, and you've got some icons.
Yeah, it looks good. We are victorious.
And as we've talked about the Phantasy Star series before, in this video series, it's a blend of science fiction and fantasy together in one game, which we usually don't see because that's kind of the idea of having two different kinds of lore, is that they're different. But Yuji Naka and company felt they needed to be put together, so there you go. It's a really great series, though. Overall, all the games have been pretty good.
Now, all the games in this series tie together. The first 4 of them, I think they all have a continuing storyline of some sort.
To a degree, yeah. And Phantasy Star 4, which we won't be looking at, was definitely the best one of the series overall.
And that was on the Genesis, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was just as good as anything SquareSoft did during the time. It was a phenomenal game, and this game's great as well. But 4 really was kind of their best one, of the on the console.
Now it's interesting here. You get a look at some of the different enemies in this game. You got your mix between like dragons and like your science fiction type creatures as well.
Yeah, you're fighting dragons with guns and lasers as well as magical spells, and it's a crazy series.
I'm gonna need to heal Rock here.
But it's like most of your RPGs, you want to go to the menu screen. Here's your item, state, tech, just
There's your equipment. Let's see, let's go to... Oh, that's the equipment screen. Let's go to state.
So
that's your status.
Yeah, there you see how the characters are.
See, what do I want to give him? I need like a healing item here.
Maybe it's that Trimate. I'm not quite sure what the healing item in this is.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you want to heal, use Trimate.
Yeah.
It's good for what ails you. So
looks like everyone's gonna need a Trimate.
Well, go ahead and just go into some more battles here. And just take a look at it.
Okay. I just don't want to kill everyone off in a battle. We're progressing through this dungeon here. It's funny that we ran into a dead end.
Yeah, and that's another thing that kind of reminds me of Phantasy Star 1. When we took a look at it, it had a first-person view whenever you were inside of the dungeons, and they took that out of the future Phantasy Stars. That was only in Phantasy Star 1, but it was kind of interesting, and that was a technique used in a lot of early RPGs.
Yeah, it kind of gave you that whole dungeon crawling D&D feel.
Yeah.
Whereas this one kind of was a little bit more like the Final Fantasy-esque ones, where it's all top-down view, but completely different in other ways. But I would definitely say that... Wouldn't you say that Phantasy Star is probably one of the best RPGs on the Genesis?
I'd say Phantasy Star 4 is the best RPG on the Genesis. Aside from the Shining Force games...
and they were kind of tactical, too.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as traditional Japanese RPG, Phantasy Star 4 was phenomenal. And Nintendo got all the other great RPGs of the era. So... it was kind of a small selection of what was available, and Sega definitely cleaned up with that, and so the Phantasy Star series was prolific on Genesis. Continuing on with Console Wars of the Past Part 3 from NewGenGamers.com, we're looking at an Electronic Arts classic, and this helped forge the Sega and Electronic Arts relationship that we would see for a lot of years. And EA's games came in different cartridges than the other Sega cartridges. They were a little bit bigger and had like a little yellow tab on them, just for something to note.
Something to notice here is look at the graphics on this.
Yeah, this is awesome.
This was a 91 game. This was one of the early ones.
Yeah.
So EA was really pushing it.
Yeah, this is really smooth and gives you a real sense of speed. You see the clouds are moving at a different pace than everything else. The background's moving differently. You've got the trees and signs coming at you. So there's a lot going on. You got cars coming at you.
Main thing about Road Rash is you can knock other people off their bikes. That was kind of the whole thing. It was kind of motorcycle combat.
Yeah.
I know in later versions they kind of added weapons.
Yeah, so this is something a little bit different than the normal racing game.
As you can, I don't know if you can hear the music very well, but it's kind of got that dark synthesis type sound to it, where it's like dun dun dun, like kind of impending doom, John Carpenter-esque.
Go ahead and just... So,
Yeah, I was always a big fan of John Carpenter because he did a lot of that dark synth type stuff. Whoa, nice airtime on that. Avoid the car. Coming up on Sid. You can see their names and a power bar of your nearest opponent here.
So, as opposed to a lot of racing games of the time, this doesn't feel like there's stuff just popping in and you're on a blank road. I mean, this seems very busy. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of, things around the side of the road. And you've been busted.
And I've been fined by O'Rourke. Now you can buy different bikes.
So that's 2 games in a row you've been arrested by an Irishman.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. I think you need to stay away from the police, Ray.
I guess so. Alright. Well, that was a look at Road Rash here.
And as you can see there, you can upgrade your bikes as you go on, and
it's a bunch of different tracks here.
Yeah, so it's not just a regular racing game. There's a little bit of extra stuff, which in today's racing games, you don't just see a racing game. There's so much to them now. So this was kind of novel back then.
And each one has a completely different environment, and
yeah, you can see this is way different.
You have that mountain vista look to it, and I'm trying to knock these guys off here. I'm punch them in the head. Try and do something like, just ignorant to them. There we go. So it was basically, EA ended up doing the Burnout series later on after they got Criterion. So this was kind of like an early take on that car combat, which was made famous by, Twisted Metal and Burnout with games later. So the seeds were there for car combat. And this was a pretty good look at Road Rash here. So we're going to move on to something a little different. Alright, we're moving on with the generation of the Genesis here, and we're going to show you a little bit of split-screen Sonic 2. So, what stage you want to do?
No, it doesn't matter. How about Casino Night, because that's
Casino
a little
Night's
bit
always
different.
fun. Yeah, this was one of the first games to attempt split-screen.
And you can see it squashes your guy quite a bit, but
it still makes it worth it, just to have that competitive aspect with a friend,
Yeah, it's better than on a lot of the previous 2-player games we'd seen where you had to take turns playing them. As far as like adventure and platform games go.
Yeah, and this one actually, ushered in that era of split screen, which we would see utilized until pretty much recently, where online's pretty much all you see anymore.
Yeah.
So this form of multiplayer was viable for a good decade at least. Wouldn't you say so? About a decade.
It still is. I mean, if you want to play with a friend and you want to play sitting down, you really don't have a choice. Not many people are going to get
multiple
TVs
consoles,
out.
yeah. Yeah, there's always that option, but yeah, not many people use that.
Oh, there we go. I was stuck in there. Even like the PS3 for a while was supposedly going to have 2 monitor outs. two TV outs, and they ended up scrapping that because really, who's going to do that? Now I'm noticing a lot of slowdown here.
Yeah, I'm not liking the lag here.
Yeah, the two-player split screen is definitely taxing the system.
Yeah, I didn't notice that back in the day, but now that we know what lag is, back in the day I didn't know too much about lag.
Yeah, I think we just ignored it when things like that happen, because, if you're a kid, you don't...
It's like, it's going a little bit slower, oh well.
That's because I'm going so fast is what you think.
You're being slowed down.
Yeah, so, things have definitely changed.
Yeah, but this was still an early, a good attempt, for an early system.
Yeah, it still works well. It was just when there's a lot of stuff going on there, it was slowing down. But other than that, it's a good attempt at two-player.
And it gives you multiple chances to go at it. You get your
I
two
had
zones.
0 rings.
Ooh.
That didn't work out real well.
Yeah, you get your 2 chances at it, and then if you have a tiebreaker stage, if you both get 1 stage apiece. Just don't give me the Robotnik. I always hated that Robotnik and that. Ooh. I'll go this way. Let's try this.
And of course, the game itself is just more of Sonic 1. Essentially, they added the Tails character, who I'm playing as a extra character, and helps Sonic out in the game to a degree.
Mainly because of Mario and Yoshi.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything they did with Sonic at this time was some sort of comparative competition to what Nintendo was doing.
Yeah, this was really a head-to-head generation.
Yeah.
I mean, the systems were mostly, comparable. Only minor differences. The platform characters, they tended to take kind of the same route.
And, as far as sales go, Nintendo ended up with about 49 million total. Genesis ended up with about 29 million total. So Nintendo definitely dominated, but
it was all towards the end, though.
Yeah, I mean, Sega did well and kept up with them and did a lot better than NEC did with the TurboGrafx. I mean, they were, at least in the US, they were not even close to...
This is the tiebreaker. You're going to want to try and get ahead of me here.
Oh, I see. And not hit those, huh? How do I go faster?
You gotta jump in front of me.
Oh, I see.
Just not into those. I got round 1. Yeah, and something else to note on this one is that Sonic 2 was the best-selling game for the Genesis.
Yeah.
At what, 6 million?
6 million, and I mean, everyone that had a Genesis had it, and it came packed in, after a while, so if you got a Genesis during that time...
You got Sonic 2 whether you wanted it or not, but but most people that had a Genesis wanted it for Sonic.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the better games for the system, and it was, the one that anyone could play and everyone talked about.
Oh yeah, and something we didn't mention while doing this is their kind of pseudo 3D.
Yeah, this was their attempt at a 3D type approach. Now, the Super Nintendo had tricks that they used to emulate 3D. Here we see the Genesis's attempt, which again, I do not like saying plural Genesis, but, So, there's Sonic 2, the two-player mode, which is just an extension of the one-player mode.
Now, you want me to give a little run through the single player?
I guess now that you've mentioned it. So you see, Tails even gets a mention in the credits, as if he's real.
He's important.
And so these characters were created simply as marketing tools and game characters, and they just build a game design around the characters.
Now, something to notice here is the backgrounds look a little bit more, colorful in this one.
Than Sonic 1.
Than Sonic 1.
Yeah, absolutely. The backgrounds look nicer. There's some transparency there with those trees. So there was, some new effects and some different things they were doing. But overall, the game's essentially the same.
Yeah, and this one was really the one where they wanted to emphasize the speed.
Yeah, you got the dash if you held down and pressed A, which became then, synonymous with the Sonic character.
And this is also the one where they started marketing the blast processing.
Yes, this is the game that campaign was launched with, which, as we discussed, was a campaign that meant absolutely nothing. But they used it to try and push this game.
Now, as you can see, I did like a super speed through those double loops. They added the double loops in this one to really liven it up. And, something else is you could have the second player take over as Tails and almost have them kill the bosses for you.
Yeah.
So it added a little bit of an ease to it.
Yeah, and it let you play a two-player game together if you wanted.
Yeah, without any real, consequence.
As you can see, I'm playing as Tails here now. I can collect coins and help out. And if Tails gets stray, it doesn't really matter. They just automatically pull him. He's basically on a leash, and they'll just catch him back up with Sonic.
Yeah, he just kind of drops in there. Kind of like, ooh. A little bit too quick there.
Now, with the Sonic character, as we said, they used him to push the system, but they also used him in lots of other mediums. They ended up with cartoon series, comic books, toys, you name it. They tried to push it.
Yeah, they did everything with Sonic at this time. He was almost more recognizable than Mario. I believe Sonic became more recognizable than Mickey Mouse, I think they said. Or was that Mario?
Mario, as a character, was so well known. So yeah, again here I can help out and kill the boss. So it definitely makes it an easier experience.
Yeah, I don't even really have to touch him, and you can just kill him. See, I hit him twice there, and Tails did the rest of it. So Sonic can just kind of chill out while Tails kills the bosses. I know a lot of people played that way back in the day.
And this was a good way to let your little brother or something play and let them feel like they were a part of the game, even if they weren't doing much. And it was definitely something cool that they added with this one.
Yeah, and, well, folks, this is Sonic 2, the best-selling, most popular game on the Sega Genesis.
And you're going to see a hell of a lot more of Sonic because, as we said, they pushed this character hard. So keep watching and you'll see more Sonic, as well as lots of other Sega goodies.
Yeah, we'll kind of cover the whole evolution of Sonic throughout this, so keep an eye out. Alright, folks, this is John Madden Football.
93.
Yeah, this was like the second one they did. So we'll show you what the early John Madden games look like. This is on the Sega Genesis. Kind of looks just like the rest of them, only a little bit less polished.
Yeah, this was early on in the series' lifespan, and it would go on basically to become EA's main franchise, and they're still making them, of course.
Okay.
And you can see the graphics have definitely improved in the series, even over the course of the Genesis. The graphics would get a lot better with each version.
I was a little confused on what was going on there. Okay, I should be kicking off here.
So this is American football as it's to be done. We have Atlanta and Philadelphia playing. You've got your wide selection of plays, which is what made the Madden series really great, was you had a wide selection of plays to choose from. So it was a lot more like a real NFL game because there was such a variety of different things that could happen.
Yeah, you could choose from all different kinds of defenses, and it really took it to the next level in realism.
Now, the series was originally done by Visual Concepts, and then was taken over eventually by Tiburon. But the interesting thing with Visual Concepts is they went on and would later become a second party of sorts for SEGA, and did the SEGA Sports series that we saw on Dreamcast, and then some of the other consoles, and then Take-Two bought the rights to them, and they did All Pro Football. So it was kind of interesting to see the company that started Madden go down the road and eventually compete with Madden. And apparently the computer was taking a while to pick their play there.
The computer has been taking their time. And I don't know why they have been. I just stop them for a loss every time. Maybe they're just figuring if they call something, it's gonna work for them.
Well, if you see, the play clock is a real play clock, so I think they were probably just working in realistic time, and that, over the course of the series they've cut some of that down and made it a little more arcadey, I guess.
A little bit quicker.
Yeah, between plays goes a little bit quicker.
I mean, you don't want to play a Madden game for an hour unless you're super hardcore,
Yeah.
Scores from other games.
Yeah, so they tried to give you the feel of, an actual NFL game day, showing you the scores from the other teams around the league, and really added a great presentation to the NFL games, and set a standard for all future football games.
And these Madden games were the first ones to do that, I believe, to have it going on in-game.
What's that?
To have, scoreboards and everything going on in-game. I know a lot of them did it after the game.
Yeah.
EA was one of the first ones to do that.
Yeah, I believe so. And, he's just playing a single game here, so, it's not basing that off a season or anything. It's just there to kind of keep you in the feel of the game. Because, as EA says, if it's in the game, it's in the game. And that was what they were trying to get across to you, and it's made for a great experience year after year. Sometimes the quality wanes on them a little bit, but overall the series has held up over the years, and has always been the top football franchise.
Ooh.
And I mean, EA is prolific with their sports. They pretty much at this point own the sports market, and so we'll be seeing some more stuff by them as we go on through this. So this is John Madden 93.
Now we're going to play some bloody Mortal Kombat. One of the games that caused the ESRB to come into existence was Mortal Kombat 2. And I'm going to take Raiden, because I love Raiden.
And I will be Sub-Zero. So this is some epic battling, and this was a game that was an arcade port brought home from Acclaim. It was made by Midway, and really was huge in the arcades and really huge at home because of these
There we
epic
go.
battles that you have.
Once I get in the Raiden mode, I can just pretty much tear anyone up. It just takes a little while. I have to get used to whatever control I'm using at the time.
So this is 2, which is far superior to Mortal Kombat 1. More characters, bigger stages, better looking character
blood.
models, more blood, better fatalities, and the addition of the babalities, friendships, and other kooky things that were there for fun. This was basically modeled after Capcom's Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, these were the top competing fighting games at the time, was Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. And that started the whole fighting game, like, boom of the mid-90s, where you would see fighting games in every 7-Eleven, department store you could find.
Yeah, this was really the last big, huge arcade boot. I don't know what following. I don't know. It was huge in the arcades, and after that, there really weren't any big titles. Once games went to 3D, the arcades kind of died, and the home consoles really became where it was at.
Yeah, for the most part, it became the point where the home consoles were more powerful than the arcade machines.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessary to check out the best stuff at the arcade. Now, during the 16-bit era, the big thing was bringing the arcade experience home.
And some of these systems really pulled that off. I mean, some of the best arcade translations were on these systems.
Yeah, and this was one of them. It's graphically far degraded from the arcade version, but it still retains everything from the arcade version.
Still got some decent voices and stuff. So, for as far as arcade ports go, this was a pretty good one.
Personally, I'm a Street Fighter guy. What about you?
If you can't tell, I'm a Mortal Kombat guy. I'm like pulling off all the moves most people don't remember for 10 years.
And this was huge at the time. Back then, you were either a Genesis or Super Nintendo fan, and you knew if you liked Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, you had to have a favorite. It was part of the culture, and as you can see, I am not a Mortal Kombat fan, and I just could never get it.
You're not a Mortal Kombat guy.
Nah, I never got it.
You're probably going to beat my ass in Street Fighter, though.
I do like Street Fighter. So there's Mortal Kombat, and so we're taking a look at quite a few fighting games here for this system, so let's continue on with something different.
Alright, continuing on here, we're going to take a look at Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition.
Now
Special Championship Edition.
Yes, this was a special version that Capcom brought over to the Sega Genesis after Street Fighter 2 was brought to the Super Nintendo, and it had the extra boss characters as well as the ability to turn the speed up and have the turbo hyper speeds, which would then also be available in Street Fighter 2 Turbo for the Super Nintendo and in the arcades.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. Oh.
And this series really put fighting games on the map, and pretty much every fighting game you saw come out up to this day is modeled around this game, which it was kind of based after ER Kung Fu from Konami back in the 80s, but this was way better and was a huge arcade hit.
This is pretty much what spawned the whole arcade boom of the late 90s.
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, the arcades were starting to go out during that time.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for this game, arcades would have died a lot quicker than they did before.
Yeah, this really brought people in and brought in some competitive stuff. And here you also get the multicolored outfits, which you didn't get on the Super Nintendo version, I do not believe.
No, and this one also lets you play as the boss characters.
Yeah.
Which I'm playing as M. Bison here, who's kind of cheap and can play just a little bit. Basically, he's cheap.
Yeah, he's the boss character and is pretty powerful.
Now, another thing about this game is they didn't really make a Street Fighter 3 for a long time. They just pretty much ported the same game, or added stuff to the same game.
Yeah, they would tweak it a little bit, and eventually they had the Alpha series and stuff, which added some new characters, but it was basically, the same type of game.
Which brings the question, how many times did they release Street Fighter 2?
Yeah, a game with Street Fighter 2 as the start of the title. There was a lot of them.
Yeah, it was like, come on, they're just now getting to Street Fighter 4.
Yeah, and even Super Street Fighter 2 was Super Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
So, this was a series that was started by Keiji Inafune, and the character design was from him, and he was huge at Capcom during all their glory days, I guess.
Yeah, the famed creator of Mega Man. And now I have the guy that can reach across the screen, so...
Yeah, Dalzim is definitely an interesting character, and all the characters played differently. That was what was really great about this, was everyone could have a favorite character, and everyone played differently, and so you could, get good with characters, learn their moves, and really have some fun with it.
And that was the whole lore of the Street Fighter series, was, getting in there and mastering all the secret moves you could do in this.
Yeah.
And you'd have, people lining up to play these games in the arcade.
Yeah, literally, lining up and waiting outside. This was huge. And so that's why the home versions were so huge, and why there was the different versions, and why... all the different companies were trying to get the exclusive rights.
Yeah, and, Nintendo scored big with getting the first one, but, Mortal Kombat went to SEGA. So, Street Fighter 2 on SEGA was good, but, it kind of paled to the Super Nintendo version.
Yeah, I think the Super Nintendo overall was better, especially with the 6 buttons. So, there's Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition.
SEGA 16ビット6メガセガファンタシースター2目を見張るリアルキャラクターツインスクロールメガドライブ対応未体験ロールプレイングゲームファンタシースター2
When you buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1, you'll get Sonic 2 absolutely free. Sonic 2 handles stubborn stains, embarrassing bald spots, no problem. It even slices and dices, makes thousands of julienne fries. But wait, you can play it too. This free Sonic 2 is a $54.99 value. You get 2 Sonics for the price of 1. Sonic 2 fits easily into any tackle box. Made from a space-age polymer plastic for years of family fun. And pets love it too. Buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1 and get Sonic 2 free. Act now. Wiener Dog Sweater sold separate.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
now we're looking at Shining in the Darkness, and this game was the progenitor for the Shining Force series. It kept the Shining name, but is vastly different in the gameplay. The Shining Force games would be
Tactics-based.
yeah, tactical strategy RPGs, and this is a dungeon crawler, so big difference.
As you can see, the little attempt at 3D there.
There's the king.
And as most RPGs, they will talk to you quite a bit.
And you can choose who you're speaking to.
Now there are only 2 trials. Now we move on to a different area.
So now we enter a dungeon. So as you can see, it's a first-person affair.
This one kind of looks a lot like the original Phantasy Star as far as its dungeon crawling went.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where they went with the series. Now, one interesting thing is the interface here with the animated attack buttons is something that would carry on in the Shining Force series, as would the kind of the attack screen. But they changed the gameplay drastically.
Yeah, it's not like the original Shining Force games where you choose how many blocks you have to move and then what kind of attack you're going to do. They completely went for more of a traditional RPG with this game, and I think that's what set it apart from the other ones.
So apparently we can't go this way.
Can't go through that door. But
So this is
finding a lot of oozes.
Yeah, this is a very basic area, but this gives you an idea of what the game was like. It had good graphics, and the later Shining Force 1 and 2 games on Genesis would be phenomenal. But this game definitely had its charms, and if you like dungeon crawling RPGs, it's definitely a great classic. So there's a quick look at Shining in the Darkness. We'll go ahead and look at a spell here real quick.
Blast.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and blast this slimy ooze. So there you get a little animation with your magic attacks.
Oh, you wiped them all out. Awesome. Well, that was Shining in the Darkness. Alright, continuing on here on Console Wars of the Past Part 3, we're going to take a look at NHL Hockey for the Sega Genesis.
Another Electronic Arts EA Sports sports title, and as we spoke, they were prolific on the Genesis and released pretty much every major sport, and so here's their take on hockey, and you can see this is a pretty refined and pretty decent looking sports game. I think of the ones we've looked at so far, this is probably the best put together one.
Yeah, this was one of my favorites back when I was playing my Genesis. Now, you can also use the puck as a weapon in this game. I used to do that and just randomly hit people. I would always like to start fights. I'm going to try and start a fight here. Or score a goal, depending on what I can do here. Since I have the Penguins, I'll probably score a goal before I start a fight, but yeah, this was back in the Penguins' glory days. And if I can get enough speed going here, I'll show you a neat little trick. The infamous wrap around the goalie trick. He's usually they're not too quick to catch on that. You just wrap around the goalie and they don't see you coming and go the other way. Or you could try and go in front and backhand it like that. I learned all the goal scoring tricks in this game. Yeah, if you wanted to be a real jerk, you could just fire the puck at somebody, hit him in the face, knock him down. It really took the brutality of hockey to the next level.
Yeah, this is definitely a great hockey game.
And just randomly hit people.
There was a lot of hockey games on the Genesis.
Yeah, hockey was kind of coming into its own as a major sport again. It kind of had a little boom back in the late 90s when they got the television rights went to Fox, who had done a good job of jazzing up the NFL. So when Fox Sports kind of took over, they had a little boom. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into a fight here. I'm going to try. I'm going to try really hard. But they're just having me score goals. They won't let me get into a fight.
Apparently the Rangers aren't here to fight. Or is that the Rangers?
That's the Islanders.
Ah, yes.
You can just hit them afterwards. It's kind of NFL Blitz style, but hey.
It's hockey. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
And if it's in the game...
It's in the game.
It sure is. So...
That's a look at NHL hockey. Continuing on here.
SEGA!
We're going to take a look at Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Now, as you can see, this is a continuation of the Sonic series. Pretty much directly after Sonic 2, it seems. And there's a look at Super Sonic. If you get all the Chaos Emeralds, you become Super Sonic. And the introduction of Knuckles to the series, who constantly taunts you throughout the game.
What a dick.
And this was also considered one of the hardest Sonic games of pretty much all time. They're always trying to trip you up and throw that challenge at you. So what was there in Sonic 2 with the ease of play kind of got lost in this one for some reason.
And you can see Tails tries to keep up, but he gets lost because there's a lot of stuff going on in this game, and it's hard for him to just tag along. He gets caught up a lot, so I'm going to hop in and play as Tails here. I'll play the plucky Miles Tails per hour, which is a fairly clever name, I always thought.
As you can see, the little scaling animation. Why is... Okay. Apparently that's on the outside of the tree. So we'll, I was never really good at Sonic 3. Just because it was, I don't know, it was overly frustrating. They threw in stuff that shouldn't have even been there. And then you have extra little bosses in this one, too. Like, this thing can't take away your rings. Can take away your rings, but you can't kill it. You can hit it, but you can't kill it.
But it has changed the entire environment, and they would use that in this throughout the game.
Yeah, it kind of... How Sonic CD had its whole switching environment thing going on. They kind of wanted to emulate that a little bit with this, although not sending you like back in time or anything, but they wanted to do like different environments without actually having you change levels. And everyone's a jerk in this game, by the way.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of spikes, and this is just on the first level, so it's definitely much more challenging level design than the previous two Sonics.
Now this time you can kill it, but it shoots fire at you. And jumps right out of your range. So yeah, Sonic 3 was a little rough. Just for the first stage, I mean. How much damage did we take there?
Yeah, and you know, it's definitely different, and you see the levels are a lot more vertical in this one, and
that was a theme they would continue on with too.
Yeah, and we would see the use of Knuckles come into play, so
Yeah, I think this one might have been more designed for Knuckles than Sonic, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way.
Here's a look at the bonus game, Blue Sphere, which they threw in to do a little bit more with the 3D experimentation they were doing with the Sonic series. Even though they wouldn't come out with a full 3D Sonic game for another 5 years when Sonic Adventure came out for the Dreamcast. So that was kind of a long span for them to go without moving Sonic to 3D.
Yeah, they had several failed attempts as they went, which if you watch all of our Console Wars of the past videos, you'll hear us speak about. But
yeah, we'll chronic the evolution of Sonic, but that was a look at Sonic 3 here real quick.
Yeah, more Sonic. They crammed as much Sonic as they possibly could on the Genesis, and in the end I think that ended up burning them. But
yeah, they kind of burned him out some.
But during the Genesis time, if you liked Sonic, there was a lot to like.
Yeah, this
for
was
sure.
The best time to be a Sonic fan, truthfully.
Okay, now here's a title that you see is based on the very popular Sesame Street, and so obviously the title is aimed at children, and so this was during Sega's Sega Club series of games that were made for children to be semi-educational, and this one was developed by EA but was branded under the Sega Club title. And there was also Barney titles. There was Richard Scarry's characters were in some of them, and a lot of them weren't that educational. This one is it definitely has some good counting games for children, but we're just showing it off real quick to show you how Sega tried to push towards some of these edutainment titles that were both educational and fun. And this is definitely one of the better ones that we saw come out of the Sega Club. And
yeah, it was good for kids, you know? That's basically what it was all for, was for the kids. They were going for that edgy route with everything, and then they figured that they needed some kids titles, really.
Yeah, and yeah, it was basically a way to sell games to kids. And you know, they did alright, and Sega went on to even release the Pico, which was essentially an edutainment console, which would have interactive storybooks and things of that sort. So, if you want to learn how to count, here's your opportunity, folks.
Unfortunately, there are too many people that don't know. Alright, folks, we're going to move on here after we serve our customer here and look a little bit more into what made the Genesis great.
I don't think it was that.
One orange. Alright, Ron. You ready to get hit with a chair?
Perhaps. Well, not if we do a Royal Rumble, but yes.
Because we're going to get raw here.
Raw is war. Now we're checking out the best wrestling game of the 16-bit era.
I just wouldn't feel right taking him. Owen Hart. I'll take The Undertaker. As you can see, you have a full selection of wrestlers here.
And it has MIDI versions of all their theme songs.
Which is a really nice addition. Oh, Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Shawn Michaels. One of the few wrestlers on here that are actually still going.
I remember how awesome I thought the music was whenever this game first came out. That it had all the themes and everything. So
who did you take, Shawn Michaels?
I am Shawn Michaels. And I played this game mostly on the Super NES, which we have a Ray's Retro review of the Super NES version. And so this is the other version of it, and they're essentially the same.
Yeah, there's a couple different characters, but that's essentially it.
I don't think with this one there's actually different characters. I think they have the same roster.
Oh, really? Was it Royal Rumble that had different characters?
Yeah.
'Cause they made so many wrestling games back then.
Did this one have Paul Pachongo, or was that Royal Rumble?
That one was Royal Rumble, I believe.
Okay, so the characters were the same for this one. The difference was on the 32X version. Quang was on it, which who cares? That was like the stupidest character to add.
He was only there for like a year too,
and he didn't do crap. He eventually was someone else, but I think he was. Actually, I think. Oh, I got thrown out. I think he was the pimp.
Oh, yeah. No, that was Kama.
Okay, who was he? Quang was someone. I can't recall. My wrestling lore.
Was he in WCW?
He was someone in WWF.
Okay.
My wrestling lore has faded over the years, and as you see, I lost here very quickly. I
think you can get back in.
Yeah, I think if you press a button combination, there we go. I hit the incorrect run button. What's grapple for this?
I believe it's A. I think it's A.
I think that's run.
I've been punching with B, so it must be C.
I think it's B and C at the same time. Seems to be. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the Royal Rumble matchup where the goal is to toss your opponents out of the ring over the top rope. For fans of professional wrestling, this was a probably the best take on the genre up to that point, and even the later stuff that we would see, like the WrestleMania the arcade game during this generation, weren't quite as good.
No, they kind of took things to more of a fighting game level. Oh, got him out.
Yeah, this was kind of its own thing. It wasn't like the fighting games of the time. I mean, it's, you have the power bar and everything, but everything's based around the grapple system, which you see pop up whenever the two guys start grabbing each other's shoulders there. They're grappling, and you have to quickly press the buttons and try and win the grapple.
It's pretty much any buttons, and then once you win the grapple, you're eliminated. What did you press to get back in?
That.
Okay.
It's mostly a button mashing affair.
Yeah, a lot of it is.
And then whatever button you hit while you're in the grapple is what move you'll pull off.
So there were a lot of things going on at Sega around this time that this game came out. This was around the time that they implemented their Sega Channel service, which was a pay cable TV service that you'd hook your cable up to your Genesis, and you could get newer Sega games, stuff that hasn't been seen before, and you could play them online. Kind of online, I guess, because it was hooked in through cable. So I guess it was one of the early, an early form of cable internet, really.
Yeah, it was an interesting concept for them, because you could do all those different things with it. And Nintendo had a similar service in Japan that never made it to America. So Sega was the first to really get, an online service going in the United States for a video game console, and offered all those cool things.
And it worked really well for them too. I mean, the Sega Channel was actually a pretty successful venture for them.
Yeah, it didn't do well or didn't do bad, and all their future consoles would be online as well. The Saturn and Dreamcast were as well. So, that was really their first step in that direction.
So, another thing they have with Sega Channel is they had contests and early versions of games. Like, you could try a game like 3 or 4 months before it was released to retail.
So these were the first examples of game demos that the public could get a hold of.
Yeah, I mean, usually before this time, game demos usually only ended up in retailers' hands.
Or gaming press. I mean, they never really had a way for people to get them, and this was before the time of demo discs and all that stuff. So really, there was no way to acquire those things. I don't know how you toss people on this one.
You basically just press the direction and win the grapple.
Well, there should be like a throw, like a...
Bigger wrestlers have that.
They do on the Super Nintendo version, so I'm guessing it's
probably
something.
the X button that's not on the Genesis version. Super Nintendo had a couple extra buttons. Like 3.
Yeah. So...
Well, Bret Hart wins, and, he's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, so...
That's a cocky attitude. I don't know about that, but he was definitely good.
That was his shtick.
I really have a problem with a guy claiming he's the best at a sport that the winner's predetermined. But hey, fair enough. He's the best. And there you see.
That was our Royal Rumble. So
definitely one of the cooler multiplayer games on the system. You could play 4 players, as you see, if you got a multi-tap. So
check it out if you're a nostalgic wrestling fan and want to play with some old characters you haven't seen in forever.
Absolutely. Better than pro wrestling for the Master System or NES.
Oh, dear Lord. Now, this one's an interesting one. This is Race Driving. This is a 3D racing game, like true 3D,
made with real polygons, actual polygons, which was incredibly novel at the time. And this series was the first to bring polygons to the arcade and be an arcade game that was fully based in 3D.
Am I moving?
Not really. There we go.
There we go.
Ray has found the gas pedal. And
wow,
it is a very arcadey game, and as you see here, after you have your accidents or whatever, it gives you an instant replay and shows you that it is fully in 3D. It gives you that zoomed out view,
and apparently you explode.
And you explode no matter what. No matter what happens, you explode.
These are cars like covered in gasoline with little matches tied to the bumpers. So anytime you get close to anything, you will explode.
Yeah. But it does
looks good.
Yeah, it pulls off the 3D effect. Gives you a sense of speed, but
see, I didn't even touch him in that replay.
Yeah, it's not really the best racing game, though, is kind of a problem that it has.
Yeah, it's kind of a rough game, but it was a good attempt at early 3D.
Yeah, it definitely pulled it off and set the standard for what we would see for years to come, and that it got ported over to Genesis is pretty impressive too.
Yeah, because this was a pretty impressive arcade game back in the day.
And this was brought to the Genesis by the evil Tenjin, who hated to license games from video game console makers.
I think this one was officially one of theirs, because they were owned by Atari Games. They got the Atari Games license, hence the Atari Games Tetris that came to the NES. That was the unlicensed one.
From the evil Tenjin. So Tenjin was an offshoot that
of Atari Games, and the downside of this game, it's a little glitchy too, as you can see there.
Yeah, obviously they hadn't gotten it down perfectly. A lot of stuff pops in and pops out, and it's rough. But it was a step in the right direction, I guess, for bringing 3D games as a standard.
Yeah, amazingly, in the arcade version, I had a little bit of an issue and was falling through the holes in the pavement. Apparently there were huge holes in the pavement.
Yeah, that is a huge problem. And so definitely rough, but definitely a groundbreaker.
Yep, it's worth taking a look at. Didn't explode.
Yeah, you just kind of like bumped into him there. Nothing happened.
Yeah, I was hoping to explode. It would have been more fun that way.
The one time.
Alright, we're going to be taking a look at another Sonic game here. As we said, that they kept going with the series.
So this is technically sort of Sonic 4.
Yeah.
Now,
And this one utilized a lock-on cartridge technology, which allowed you to place Knuckles in Sonic 2 and 3.
lock-on technology was, I think, made famous by Codemasters with their Game Genies. We saw that on we saw it on every console during the late 80s, early 90s. And Codemasters is a great developer that's still around, based out of the UK. And they created a device called the Game Genie that would alter the game's program and allow you to have extra lives and just break some of the aesthetics of the game to allow you to basically cheat.
Yeah, essentially, it was early console hacking software.
Yeah, and so of course later things like the Pro Action Replay and Game Shark were evolutions of that. But Sonic and Knuckles took that lock-on cart technology where you would plug a game into basically a middle cartridge that would then plug into the console.
As you can see, they continued with the Blue Sphere minigame thing here, as we had shown you in Sonic 3.
And again, Sonic started to get tired at this time. Sonic 3 was rough and just kind of left everyone going, well, it's Sonic, it's okay, but...
Yeah, this one they upped the difficulty again, and they threw in Knuckles and added that lock-on technology.
Yeah, Knuckles became a playable character, and what made this significant was that it essentially added a new playable character to Sonic 1, 2, and 3. Just like the...
No, it didn't work on the first one. For some reason, they couldn't get the code to work on the first one.
Oh, okay. The device itself worked much like Codemasters Game Genie, where it would alter the game program, and so it would add the Knuckles character to the existing games. And so basically it added new content to games that were already out. And I think Sega looked at this technology and for some reason thought it was really great and really a way to go, and it's what they did with the Sega 32X.
Yeah, the 32X was kind of the ultimate in the lock-on technology.
And perhaps not ironically, the last time we would see that technology in use, I think.
Yeah. The thing about the 32X was that they took the lock-on thing a little far.
Yeah, and essentially tried making an entire system out of it that was just poorly thought out. And check out our Console Wars of the Past on the 32X to get the full story on that debacle that really in the end hurt Sega way more than it helped them in any way, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely a failure for them. And so that kind of came from this.
Now, we're going to take a little quick look here at the other Sonic games working in this, so just give us a moment and we'll switch it out here for you. Hopefully the lock-on technology works. Alright everyone, here's Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Oh, okay, there we go. Alright everyone, here's Knuckles in Sonic 3. Now some of the additions they had to it was that Knuckles could climb walls, so that's one of the reasons that I think that this game was actually designed more for Knuckles.
Yeah, we looked at this level with Sonic earlier, so here it is with Knuckles, and so there you see he climbs the wall there, and you don't get Tails with you, and it also
yeah, it pretty much is the exact same game, only with Knuckles, with hidden stuff in areas that only Knuckles could reach.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if the stuff was in the actual original code or what, but
I think with Sonic 3, it was designed with Knuckles in mind, but Sonic 2, everything that was added was after the fact.
yeah. So they didn't actually go back and redo Sonic 2. It was just added from the lock-on cartridge.
Yeah, it basically hacked the game, and I mean that's basically what the Sonic and Knuckles lock-on cart was a hack for the other Sonic games. And so it was kind of interesting that they released that, and there wasn't anything else I can think of on the home systems like that, games that function that way.
Yeah, that was the only one I've ever seen.
And, it would only work with a series like that, or, I mean, it worked great with the Game Genie, but...
Especially stuff that had pretty much the same engine, so they wouldn't have to do too much to hack it.
So there you see...
Knuckles in Sonic 3.
Yeah, he's essentially the same character, just with, a few different moves, and it gives the game a little bit of replayability and different ways to play through it.
Another way for them to keep the Genesis alive. Sega kept doing that.
Yeah, this was when things were starting to dry up and they were starting to really get beaten by Nintendo overall.
So they had to come up with some new ideas, and this just happened to be one of them, So, that's Knuckles in Sonic 3.
Genesis. Absolutely Sega Genesis. It's gotta be Spider-Man.
Sega Genesis.
Definitely Strider.
Sega Genesis.
Go with Strider, Spider-Man, just two hot names of the games. Sega Genesis systems and games sold separately, available at these fine stores.
Twice as big as Sonic 2! Shit! The new 3D special stage! Shit! And the new game save feature! Shit! Do it!
New Sonic 3 is now available at a store near you.
Sega!
New Sonic 3 game cartridge and Sega Genesis sold separately.
We went to the big guy.
We laid the whole thing out for him.
We told him we had this great idea for a new game called Sonic and Knuckles.
It's Knuckles in his own game. Plus it has new technology.
Lock-on technology.
So you can play Knuckles in Sonic 2 and 3.
It's revolutionary.
He just laughed at us. So we sold the whole thing to Sega?
Who's laughing now? Batman!
Sega.
Take it, but leave my ultravision goggles. I cannot survive without them.
So you want to live in a comic book?
Greetings, puny mortals.
Welcome to the Comic Zone. Slay fiendish villains that get drawn back in, page by page. You'll feel right at home.
From the darkness of the oven, the slain beast.
We will live another day.
Comic Zone, only for Sega Genesis.
Sega!
Comic Zone game cartridge and Sega Genesis, each sold separately.
Cool.
I heard Mac got a Sega Genesis. I heard Mac got a Sega Genesis.
Well, I guess one more is okay.
The Sega Genesis. Game cartridges sold separately.
Alright, we're going to take a quick look here at Comic Zone. This was an interesting one. You're basically a comic book writer who falls into his own comic book.
Now this was created by Sega Technical Institute which SEGA created as a development house that was comprised of students looking to get into the game industry. So, you see the fresh idea that young people bring, kind of a stylized premise behind the game.
And it was a very edgy title too. They went for that kind of that dark feel of what comic books were back in those days.
Yeah, the game is essentially just a beat 'em up, but with the way the levels are laid out through the comic book panes and just how it progresses, it definitely feels like a different type of title.
Yeah, just for the way it's laid out, it doesn't feel linear. See ya. And see how it does. And here's your buddy the rat.
And so you have some interactive backgrounds and more interaction than a lot of the other beat 'em ups of the time. They were essentially just follow the level and move on after you kill everyone. This one has some different things. You got to switch there. The backgrounds change and move around, and just a really cool design for this game.
Yeah, it's definitely got its own feel to it, and it's an interesting title you should check out. And see, they add it seems like everything in it's mostly interactive.
Yeah, they definitely made it kind of a cool, almost action game with so much stuff that you can do. And we never saw any sequels to this or anything else, so
it's really a unique title.
Yeah, and we really didn't see much more out of Sega Technical Institute, so this was kind of a one-hit wonder type thing that is one of those great titles that probably a lot of people missed, but is still cool and still holds up.
Yeah, this one it's definitely got some good replay to it.
This was also available on PC, and that's something we haven't talked about.
Sega's PC library.
Yeah, Sega was selling their games on their home systems, but they were also porting a lot of them to Windows computers, especially during the Windows 95 era. So you saw a lot of their stuff on the PC as well. The same titles ported over. So that's Comic Zone. Definitely check it out if you want to check out a not run-of-the-mill action game.
Oh yeah, definitely check this out. I recommend it to anybody. Now this one's one of the bloodier games on the console.
And surprisingly not one of the ones the ESRB rating system went after. Although it seems like the titles they went after were American titles. This being from Namco is not an American title.
And Rise from Your Grave.
Definitely has an American type theme. Very similar to Jason, the horror protagonist from the
Friday the 13th movies.
Yes, thank you. Ray is our
horror movie excerpt.
Yes, Ray knows his horror movies. I only dabble.
Yeah, I'm a big horror movie fan.
And the Splatterhouse series was big on Genesis, and another one that would not have been allowed on Nintendo's systems.
Oh,
and
no.
And showed off the kind of edginess that Sega was pushing. And again, this is another side-scrolling beat-em-up, and the Sega Genesis was
huge for these.
Yeah, that was probably one of their biggest genres, and that we saw the most of.
Yeah, the side-scrolling beat-em-up was essentially half of the Genesis's library.
So you got to find creative and inventive ways to recreate that, and so here's a take that Namco had on it.
A bloody take. Yeah, everything's gooey in this game. I guess the whole Splatterhouse thing.
Yeah, they really do come through with the name on this one. Everything, you see, you hit those guys, they splatter up against the wall. You splatter this guy and that guy with your punches. It's over the top, that's for sure.
Yeah, for a horror type game, it's one of the few early on that got it.
And your character is obviously some sort of crazy maniac,
murderer type psychopath or something.
And he has no shoes on, and that I think just shows how crazy he is. When you're fighting specters and demons and not wearing shoes, you're out there, man.
Yeah, there's something wrong.
And as we watch them dance around here, our protagonist comes in and kills them.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Now we have a giant, ugly boss who just belched acid on me and I died.
Yes, he's very hut-like.
Yeah. Good thing you can trap him in a corner.
Oh. Except when he expels the contents of his bowel onto you.
Oh, that sucked. Yeah, you have basically like that skull type face.
Yeah, so this is just a very creepy, dark game.
This was the one that if your mom saw you playing it, she'd freak out and burn it and say you're going to hell. Say you're going to church. That's it. We're going to church this weekend.
Which is the bane of all young men's existence.
Yeah, if you were at home with a Sega Genesis and your mom said you're going to church, you might as well forget having that game anymore. She went and burned it in the backyard somewhere. Alright.
And another...
this is a good look at Splatterhouse.
Yeah, another thing you see with this is that the levels kind of differ. It's not just, beat 'em up, run through the level, but it's very ambient. You see here it's dark. Great atmosphere on this series, so if you want to check out a great old beat 'em up, check this out. There you see those skulls in the background appearing just to mess with you. I mean, this is very dark and disturbing, so...
And of course you get death spikes.
If you like the macabre, check it out.
Yeah, definitely. Now we're going to take a look at one of the last games released on the Sega Genesis, World Series Baseball 98. This was right before they pulled the plug on the system.
Yeah, and this really showed off the power of the Genesis. We've kind of been going through and looking at the evolution of the system here, and this really shows kind of the end of the life cycle and where things got development-wise and what could be done with the system when it was pushed to its limits, and the next title we look at will as well. So we're wrapping it up here, and as you can see, this has awesome graphics for a 16-bit system.
Now, I always loved the World Series Baseball series because you can select where you're pitching. See the box there? You can select the type of hit you do. There's normal, contact, and power hitting. See, I did a power hit there, and he nailed it all the way out to the outfield there.
Yeah, this is leagues above most of the other baseball games that we saw around the time. Again, the SNES Genesis rivalry, Nintendo had their Ken Griffey Jr. series because they owned the Seattle Mariners. But I don't think the series could quite hold up to this one. This is really well put together, but again...
They threw in some voice work, too.
Yeah, but again, by the time this came out, the Genesis was pretty much dead. And that's another thing. Sega's sports games did feature a lot of voice work, and all of the Genesis games featured a lot more actual voice work than we heard on the Super Nintendo.
I wonder why that was, because the Super Nintendo, as most people believe, had the superior sound chip.
Well, it was better at emulating real-world sounds. So if you'll notice, a lot of epic Super Nintendo games have like really good wind sounds and things of that sort, environmental sounds.
Yeah.
Because that's what that sound chip was programmed to do. where the Genesis was a lot better at this voice work. So again, there you see the contrasting and comparison of the systems, which was relentless during that time. I mean, they were so similar, and both had so many great titles. You had to pick out things that made one better than the other.
Yeah, that's why this console war was really so close, was just the fact that the systems were so similar that it was kind of hard to distinguish them, and both had really great games.
And even the TurboGrafx, which we didn't see as much of it in America, but it held up in Japan and did well under, well, we call it the PC engine. That's what they call it, but it was the same technology, same machine.
Yeah. And
so
Sega really tried with their Genesis, and they did a good job. And they attempted to keep the console alive as long as they possibly could, which we've kind of gone into a little bit, and we'll definitely show you how they attempted to do that in some of the later ones.
Even though they essentially killed the Genesis and every other existing line several times, but titles would keep eking out like this because people still had Genesises.
Genesis?
They had Genocide.
Genocide. That almost sounds bad.
So this is an awesome baseball game of the era. So this kind of winds out the look at all these great sports games for the Genesis. So let's take a look at one more Sonic game to round out the Genesis lineup.
Alright, folks. This is our last Sega Genesis title. We're going to be taking a look at Sonic 3D Blast.
Made by Traveler's Tales, who are now very well known for the Lego Star Wars titles and also the Sam and Max series. So Traveler's Tales is a developer that's done a lot of work on they've done a lot of different stuff over the years. They don't restrict themselves to one type of game. And so here they did some work for Sega and did a great job with the Sonic series. I think this honestly is better than Sonic 3 ended up being.
Yeah, this one had an interesting viewpoint. It took you a little while to get used to it, but they weren't so obtrusive with it.
Yeah, the isometric view, which does end up working well with this series. It gives you a good vantage. Or not series, this was the only game like this that they did, but...
And to be truthfully honest, the isometric view almost works better than some of their 3D stuff that they attempted with Sonic.
Yeah, it really is. You know, it's way different than the 2D stuff, but it still plays a lot like a Sonic game. You can still do your spin dashes, and you always have track of where your guy is. And this is a fun design, and I really enjoyed playing this one myself.
And it also proves what the Sega Genesis was truly capable of, because by the time that this came out, other 3D consoles were coming out, and the fact that they could even attempt something like this on the Genesis, which was pretty well underpowered at the time compared to everything else. This came out, I believe it was on Saturn as well, and the Genesis version looked almost, if not as good as the Saturn version.
And this used the pre-rendered CGI technique that was really made famous by Donkey Kong Country and Final Fantasy VII, where all the characters and all the backgrounds are modeled in 3D, but they're basically overlaid on traditional 2D sprites. So it gives the illusion of it being a 3D game, but it's just what's overlaid on the character models and on the backgrounds. But the effect is really good. Now, as you can see in the game here, he's got these birds chasing him, and that's one of the goals of the game, is to collect as many of those little birds as possible as you're traveling through the stages.
Now, I have a little bit of lore on those. Those are actually called flickies, and that was an early Sega arcade game. Was kind of like a puzzle game where you had to get your flicky through the level and collect all your friends.
Really?
Yeah. It was an early Sega one. I'm not sure if that was a Master System title or it came out early Genesis.
Oh, that's interesting that
you can actually find it as a bonus title on the Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube.
That's cool. That's cool that Traveler's Tales put that in there, or Sega, whoever decided to put them in there and use them prominently in the game design.
Yeah, they just kind of slipped them in there and wondered if anyone would notice, I guess.
And we looked at all the Sonic games during this console war video series for the Genesis, and it got stale. The regular Sonic formula that Yuji Naka came up with got stale, and so this was kind of a fresh look at it that I think worked. It wasn't a direct Sonic game, but I think it was a good extension of the design, and like you said, if they had honed this, maybe could have been where they went with a 3D game.
Yeah, truthfully, they didn't have any camera issues in this game for sure.
No, it controls really well and plays really well. Like, I personally like playing this as much as the regular Sonic games, but this never caught on as well as the other Sonic games, and it doesn't give you that speed feeling that the Sonic games were known for. But yeah, as far as a game design goes, it's really fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, this game didn't get the credit it deserved, and I think, unfortunately, it may have come a little too late in the lifespan.
Yeah, I think that definitely played a factor. I mean, by this point, and
by this point, Saturn was already out.
That and Super Nintendo had shown that it was obviously the superior system graphically, so this coming out with the pre-rendered 3D stuff just was not groundbreaking the way it was when Donkey Kong Country came out.
Yeah.
So, just kind of a title that's lost in lore, and
it's worth taking a look at.
Worth taking a look at, and a lot of fun to play. So we close out the Sega Genesis with this title, one that really came out near the end of the system and kind of sent Sonic on his way, and we would never really see a great Sonic game again for years.
Yeah, and this one came out, I believe it was 95, 96, and the next good Sonic game was Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast, which didn't come until 99, so it kind of ended Sonic's run. Now, I guess the last thing we could really say about the Genesis is we'll have more to say about this. We're going to look at their add-ons.
Yeah, this is it for the standalone Genesis console, which there were 3 versions of. The Genesis 1, the original model, which had the headphone jack, and then the Genesis 2, which is the probably best known model, and the Genesis 3, which is probably the least known model, which was a lot smaller.
It was like a mini console.
Yeah, and so between all of that, they released the Sega CD and 32X add-ons. So we'll look at those individually, but they were technically part of the Genesis because you had to have the Genesis to play them.
Yeah, they couldn't be played alone. They were add-ons.
And we'll talk about why that didn't work. So check that series out, and also check out our other console wars of the past videos, articles, and other goodies on newgengamers.com. It's all fun and entertaining, and you might like it.
Yeah, and remember, if you don't remember your history, you're doomed to repeat it. That's all for us today, folks.
And we say that specifically to Sega.
Yes, Sega, come on.
But, of course, they didn't learn, and
hence why we're here talking about them being a classic console maker instead of a current one.
And why they are a console war of the past.
Yes.
So, sorry to see you go, Sega. You had potential and you brought a lot of cool stuff along, but in the end, you just tried too many crazy ideas that just didn't make sense. So,
well, later, folks.
NewGenGamers.com.